This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host Ian Gibson.
Hey, how are we going? How are we doing?
So, this is a college football media brand. We said, like always, we cover Florida Gators, USF Bulls in Tampa, USC, and UCLA because I live here in LA. And we also cover national stories. So what we're going to do this week, this is the first real week of football. We're actually recording this show on the Friday before week 0 because I'll be in Cancun on my honeymoon. We have to do this today and not Wednesday, but this will air on Wednesday before the week 1 games. So we're going to go into it. All it is this week is nothing but a breakdown because I can't really do anything about what happens on week 0. We have no knowledge of it yet. So we have to just go on what's on week 1. Most of those teams don't even play into week 1 anyways. So we'll just talk about mainly the bigger storylines, which what we do is we'll talk about the 4 teams we cover, their games, and then we talk about the other big story games, like the Texas, Ohio State, the Alabama, Florida State, the LSU, Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, all those games we'll talk about. And even some other ones. I even put in the list Duke, Elon, just because I want to see what Mensa does under the helm at Duke, because that's an interesting. There you go. Thank you, Ian. That's an interesting storyline because Duke was, I think they were 9-3 last year, and they, are kind of sneaking under the radar. They played SMU really well. They beat Florida State. They were like this team that has some talent. I don't know with Manny Diaz. I don't know why it never really necessarily worked out. I know that a lot of Miami fans really were upset with what his tenure ended up being. But I don't think he's like a terrible coach, especially on defense. He did really well at Penn State. And I have a feeling that he'll do pretty well at Duke. Their defense looked good last year. And they were pretty good before that because of Mike Elko was the head coach there too. So maybe they'll be pretty good. I mean, Mensa is a really good quarterback. He was at Tulane last couple of years, and he's very athletic, very underrated just because he was a group of 5 quarterback. But, going to a Power 4 conference, maybe he can do some damage. I mean, maybe they go 10-2. Maybe they're in the ACC championship game. I mean, who knows? I think the ACC outside of Clemson and maybe Miami, SMU, the rest of it's kind of wide open. So maybe they can, stake their claim just outside of those teams. But enough about Duke, Elon.
Yeah.
I know it's just a smaller game because it's not going to really matter because the score will probably be bad. But do you want to break into it? Do you have any storylines you want to talk about before we get into this one?
I would say probably the biggest storyline for week 1 is obviously the slate of Texas and Ohio State, literally first game of week 1 pretty much at noon. Because you both have quarterbacks starting their first games with Arch Manning and Sayin at Ohio State. And for Arch Manning, how is he going to live up to the hype? Because he has to go into the Badgers den and go into the horseshoe against the defending national champion. And when he did play last year in the Cotton Bowl, they got to him pretty good. So I would say that is the biggest storyline. Also, I would say the other one would be the LSU Clemson game, because both of those teams need that win. Clemson needs to show that they can still win outside of the ACC, and Brian Kelly needs to start this season on a high note. He is yet to win a week 1 game. Now, credit, LSU has always had these neutral site games, but still they could, they were literally an extra point away from tying and possibly beating Florida State that one year.
Yeah.
And then they really got blown out in the Citrus Bowl against Florida State. And then they lost a bad one to USC where he slammed the table and the water bottle went 10 feet in the air. So,
but that USC game was close though too. That was like they barely lost that one too. So they haven't like I mean outside of that one game against Florida State, but even in that Florida State game, that game was close most of the way through. And in that Florida State game in the Citrus Bowl, LSU was moving the ball quite well. They just couldn't capitalize on drives, and they like turned it over and like just kind of messed around. And they kind of figured that out the rest of the year because Jaden Daniels ended up getting the Heisman that year. But no, I mean, obviously they take a lot on by playing a big time opponent the first game of the year. You know, I credit them for doing that because a lot of teams don't. You know, Florida's not doing it. There's some others that are not playing really anybody. And so, you know, Penn State's probably playing nobody. And, you know, it is what it is. Like, you know, at this point, I know that the news just broke down yesterday, the fact that the SEC is making it a 9-game schedule, conference schedule, and then they're requiring a Power 4 opponent in as one of the 10 games. So outside of those two, they have the ability to choose whoever they want. But, you know, going forward, I think it needs to be more aligned with everyone else, because if you're not able to like actually like judge these teams accordingly because they don't have a decent schedule, then it's kind of difficult to be like, oh, well, you went 12-0 when like Florida goes 9-3 when Florida plays Miami and USF, which are, you know, really good non-conference opponents, and FSU. And so like, you know, like when Indiana's playing like, you know, I don't know, Old Dominion and Bowling Green and stuff, you know, so it's like you got to get more uniform and aligned. But you want to start into the schedule, or what do you want to do? You want anything else?
Yeah, I can get us kicked off.
All right, start the first one.
So obviously, first one, and one I will be attending, it will be the Boise State USF game. Huge group of 5 matchup, and this is an under the radar one. Boise State, obviously, they are the class of the group of 5. Mountain West champions, went to the playoff last year. But now with, you know, Genty gone, they're trying to, you know, make sure they hold on to that position. It's a 12-team playoff, but still there was only really Boise State was the only group of 5 team that got in. So they're going to – it might – even though it's a 12-team playoff, it's going to be slim pickings for out of the group of 5. And the, you know, likely candidates to challenge that would be from the American. So Boise State, this is a big deal because this is their only American opponent right now from the conference. So they're going to have to really show out. And if USF does have a very good year, they're going to have to really prove themselves with that. Now, obviously, the trouble for Boise State now is that they do not, you know, Ashton Genty, who was the bell cow and the best running back in the country, is gone. So they're going to have to find the replacement for that. Now, they did get transfer Malik Sherrod in, and they have the freshman. He was the backup last year. Sire Gaines. Those will be the 1-2 punch. So in this game, the thing to look for would be defense. Both of these offenses, USF had a very good offense last year, even with Byron Brown going down early. They were still in the top 50, and they were in the top 5 of the American, and Boise State was in the top 10 in offense too. That's not going to be the issue. The issue is going to be, how does USF's defense respond after having literally the worst passing offense in the country? And that's going to be the key, is the linebackers. Can they stop the run game enough to make Madsen forced to throw the ball? I said this in my article, that the interesting thing to note was USF, when the quarterback had a completion percentage above 60%, they lost every game last year.
Yeah.
Madsen's completion percentage average last season was 62%. Very manageable if you can get on him, get in his face early, and if you force 3rd and longs instead of 3rd and manageables, because I'm going to be real, If it's 3rd and 2, I'm expecting Boise State to convert. I just don't see the defense able to stop that. So the thing to watch in this game, I would say, is how the USF defense is able to attack the run, and more importantly, how the secondary and linebackers can take away the middle of the field.
Yeah, I mean that's been the big story we were talking about like in our preview of USF is their defense, and the last couple of years, they're around 30 points allowed per game, and it's like you have to step up at some point. Even the yardage allowed per game was even more last year than the year before. So they got better in point average, but they got worse in yards allowed. So it has to step up at some point. It's been the same coordinator since Golish has gotten here, and I would think there is an excuse because the fact that there wasn't a ton of talent and he had to get his guys. Okay, 3rd year, you've gotten your guys by now. You brought in transfers. They brought in a ton of guys. They had a bunch of returning starters. So, they should be up to snuff here. I know Madsen is a very good quarterback. He's very underrated because, again, he's a G5 quarterback. So there's not as much hype around those guys, but he's very solid out there. He helped lead them to a 12-2 record. Yes, they had Genty, but I feel like USF in this game, it's in Tampa. There's a lot riding on this game because they then have road games against Miami and or at Florida and then at Miami. So they're more than likely going to lose those games. I think I saw the percentage of chance that they have to win those games was like 9 and 10% out of both of those. So there's like literally no chance. This is their one shot out of these 3 games. This is the one that they have to win. I think they need to be all in on this. I think they will be. I've called it since, we did the preview. I feel like USF's going to win this one. I think USF is going to, have the ball last, and they'll probably be up like 3 points, and they'll somehow be able to, wear out the clock to get the win. And I'm going to say it's like a 34-31 win. USF wins. Ian, what do you got?
For this one, USF hasn't beaten a ranked opponent since 2016, and that was against Navy. So it has been almost a decade since they have beaten a ranked team. The problem is that Boise State, the class of the group of 5, they have been in these games before, and USF is going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at them. And if South Florida can get enough points ahead, because I think they can come out and score early, but Boise State has been down before and they find a way to fight back. And also, there's been talks about, USF's no-huddle attack could keep Boise State off balance. I looked back, and the closest team that Boise State did play to that kind of offense was UNLV's go-go offense. And Boise State won both of those games, but UNLV did put up over 300 yards on that defense each game last year.
Yeah.
And that was easily their toughest opponent on the Mountain West. I think USF will get points on the board, but if it comes down in the 4th quarter and it's a 1-score game, I just don't think USF would have enough in the tank to pull it off. I'm going to go with the Broncos winning in a 31-25 victory.
Okay, we both have Boise scoring 31. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, quickly on Elon versus Duke. Like I said, I just want to see what Mensa does. We already discussed it. You have anything on that?
Same thing, and I want to see how well the offense responds. They were like in the 100 ranges in the offenses last year. So with Mensa coming in, that should be an immediate help.
Yeah.
But again, this should be a layup game, so we're going to see how much they flex their muscles here.
Okay, last game that we have notably on Thursday is Nebraska and Cincinnati. I have this one on here because not that I value Cincinnati that much. They really have kind of, I don't know, like Luke Fickell left and they've kind of fallen off. I can't remember that coach from Louisville. What's his name? But he took over for Cincinnati after Fickle left, and it's been kind of, they've struggled in the Big 12. They're stepping up to a major conference, and they've really not looked that great. They've had moments, but it's been kind of whatever. But this is kind of a huge game for Nebraska. A lot of media people have Nebraska as a sleeper pick for the playoffs, and it's there's potential there. Raiola is talented, and he showed glimpses last year. Can he really turn them into an 8, 9, 10 game winner? I think there is potential there. Their schedule is kind of difficult, but this would be a huge step in the right direction. This is a non-conference game. It's on the road. No, it's not. It's a neutral site game. It's in, I
think it's in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's in Kansas City. So this would be a huge game for Nebraska to win. I think they're probably going to all their fans are real close by, so they'll be able to get to this game. So it should probably be a pro Nebraska crowd. And, I think Nebraska gets the win. I think, this is a first, this is a showcase game for them, because this game, the USF game comes on at 5:30 Eastern. And then this one comes on at I think 8:30 Eastern. So this is the showcase game. And this is why USF fans, this game, or why the USF game is earlier, because this game is more of a showcase game, because Nebraska is a blue blood, and there are more fans across the nation of them than Boise or USF. And so they want this game on prime time, and that's why it's earlier, and that's why it's going to be hotter. And I know people are complaining, and they're also wearing the black jerseys. We didn't talk about that, but whatever. This game is more of a focus. It's just the reality of it is. And I think Nebraska, because it's a primetime game, it's going to be kind of their moment this year, showcasing hey, we're really ready for the moment. And I think they win probably in a 28-20 game. It's probably going to be, not a close game per se, because I think maybe Cincinnati scores late when they're down 2 scores, and so it ends up 28-20, and Raiola kind of has a decent game. I'm gonna say he probably has a 250 and 2 touchdown game, and if he's clean on his turnovers, they should win comfortably. So what do you got, Ian?
Yeah, this game I did put it's upset watch for me, because yes, Nebraska is going in as heavy favorites.
Yeah,
it's the former site of the Big 12 championship, so a lot of Nebraska fans know that place like the back of their hand.
Yeah.
Although it's ironic that the Big 12 team isn't Nebraska, it's Cincinnati. Yeah. If you were to tell me that 10 years ago, that would have been
longer.
20 years ago. 20 years ago.
I know. Yeah,
God,
I know.
We're getting old.
I know.
Back in my day, Nebraska was in the Big 12. Anyways,
and you're not even that old.
Yeah. Regardless, the thing with Cincinnati though is that they didn't get a lot of wins, and it has been a rough transition to the Big 12, but so is every AAC team's transition into the Big 12. But with the offensive side of the ball last year, they were very balanced. They had a very good run and pass attack, and that could really put Nebraska's defense in a spin. But Nebraska's defense really was fantastic last year. They were top 25 in the nation in defense, and they were able to, especially against the run, I think they were top 10 and one of the best in the Big 10. But I would say with that, Nebraska's defense is really solid, so I think they'll get enough stops on Cincinnati. That offense in Raiola needs to take that next step. So in order to do that, I mean, Raiola is literally trying to carbon copy Patrick Mahomes, so what better place to do it than the home stadium of him? So if he wants a showcase game, you couldn't ask for a better spot. So I'm going to take Nebraska winning this one. I'm going to go with a 34-17 win, but don't be surprised if Cincy keeps it close.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Next game we got is Friday game. 2 Friday games we have on the slate. Auburn, Baylor. Now, you know, there's this Auburn team is very difficult to figure out. It has been, you know, they have a lot of talent. You know, the wide receivers, the two guys that they have are like super studs. The one I think is Singleton, right? That's his name. And, he's getting a lot of notoriety outside of the Ryan Williams and the Jeremiah Smiths. He's like up there as far as ability. And so he is a standout. The other guy, I can't remember his name, but he seems to be a standout as well. So they have quite the duo. The defense seems to be stocking up some talent. Hugh Freeze is a really good coach. It's just, it hasn't been there yet. Like, they've struggled with quarterback play. Peyton Thorne was kind of like a Band-Aid, basically the Graham Mertz that Florida had. He's just like essentially the same type of like output. He's a lot faster than Graham because Peyton had that huge run, I think, in the Georgia game. But no, Peyton Thorne is gone, and in comes Jackson Arnold. And I don't know. I think the other day, it was either this week or late last week, talking about that the quarterback room or the quarterback competition is still open and that all three could play or whatever. And I'm just like, oh man, if you can't figure this out, like, and Jackson Arnold is like, super talented. He just struggled a little bit at Oklahoma. There was some major injuries there in the wide receiver room. So it could have kind of killed his confidence a little bit, but now he has the players around him to really take off. This is a huge game, though. This is not like this is a small school, a directional school. This is someone actually that has the ability to win the Big 12, and Baylor is no joke. And if Auburn does not take this seriously, they're going to get beat. And right now, Phil Steele has Baylor predicted to be his Big 12 winner. So, like, obviously there's talent there. And, Sawyer Robertson is back at quarterback for them. I mean, they were 8-5 last year. I don't know. I don't know what to make, because if Auburn doesn't win this game, like, the tumor trees are gonna like get uproot and go attack Hugh Freeze at his home, like something out of like Lord of the Rings, and it's like I don't know what to expect if they lose this game. It's not going to be good. I don't expect them to be fired if they lose, but they got to win this game. It's crazy that a first game of the year is that important, but it really is, because even if they lose some SEC games, because I don't think Auburn is projected to be even, in middle of the road, basically, territory in the SEC, but, they're not expected to be a winner of the SEC. So, like, they just need to be 8-9 wins. But if you lose this first game, it kind of like derails all that momentum that they've been building. This probably has more pressure in this first game than maybe anyone else.Maybe only outside of Mario Cristobal in the Notre Dame Miami game. That's it. Like, as far as pressure, I think these two coaches have the most pressure. And if I were Hugh Freeze, I'd pull out all the stops. I'd have been like practicing reverses, fake punts, fake field goals, all kinds of stuff to like make this win, because you have to do whatever you can to win this game. And Baylor has a good defense, and it's okay. Like 2 years ago they were terrible. Last year was a little bit better, but which is a surprise, because Dave Aranda, coming from the defensive side of the ball, you think they would have better defense, but their D coordinators have not been great. Offensively, they were great last year. They average 34.4 points a game, so that's really good. But I don't know. I mean, you look at Baylor because last year they had 6 straight wins to finish off the year, and against really good opponents, Texas Tech, Kansas in there. So I'm gonna go with Baylor. I'm just gonna have to go with them. I'm leaning towards it. I feel like Baylor's gonna score probably 31, and then Auburn's gonna score like 22. What do you got?
Yeah, so bit of history here. Auburn has not won a road Power 5 game since 2015 against Kansas State.
Wow.
All other games they have played. Now, they played neutral site games, and they've beaten Oregon, and they beat Louisville, and I believe they beat somebody else in between there.
This is non-SEC Power 4.
Yeah, non-SEC. Yeah. Non-SEC. Not out of conference Power 4 program. Yeah. That last time was against Kansas State in 2015 when Gus Malzahn was still there.
Ooh.
And they lost to Penn State. They had a road game against Clemson a few years ago, and they lost that one. And now you are going to Baylor, which was the team that is built on these high octane offenses. And that's the thing is here's the thing. Auburn's defense I'm not worried about. It's the offense. Yeah, they got the wide receivers, and now with Jackson Arnold, but the quarterback play still has a lot to be desired. If the way Auburn wins this game is if Jackson Arnold lives up to the hype and can just sling it, go like 70% completion throughout the game, and they can really lean on that. Yeah. But it has been so inconsistent in the last couple of years that I can't trust them. Meanwhile, Baylor, a lot of returning starters. Sawyer Robertson is back at quarterback. Yeah. I'm going to take Baylor winning this one in a shootout. I'm going to go with a 38-34 win.
Yeah. I just feel like Baylor's got too much. I'm looking back at last year's results for Auburn. They won 5 games, and 2 of them were against group of 5 teams, New Mexico and Louisiana Monroe, and 3 of them, Alabama A&M, New Mexico, and Louisiana Monroe. They only won 2 Power 4 games last year. Mm-hmm. So and they were Kentucky was pretty bad. They did beat Texas A&M. That's that was their win. It was a huge win. And I will give it to them. They beat Texas A&M, but besides that, they looked like trash all last year. They got smoked by Georgia. They had some close games, Missouri, Vanderbilt. Not terribly beaten by Alabama. Got beat by a bad Arkansas team. Got beat by a bad Oklahoma team. And they got beat by a bad Cal team that lost to Florida State.
Yeah.
Their only Power 4 victory was against Cal. So, that's really pathetic. Moving on. Okay, Georgia Tech, Colorado on Friday. I love this Tech team. I've already, talked about it in our preview. If there is ever a more perfect head coach for a college team, is their alums. And this guy, Brent Key, lives and breathes Georgia Tech football. And there's just something about this guy. I'm really amazed at how well he's done, because it's been, when he took over, they were kind of, struggling, middling. And then last year, Haynes King takes over the reins. Well, he was there 2 years ago as well, but he took over the reins, and he really showed stuff last year. He was really good in some of those big wins, and they finished 7-6. It was the same as the year before, but I think what really stood out this year was the big win against Miami, when Miami was 10-0 at that point.
Yep.
And or 9-0. And then beating Florida State that first game of the year, and then they should have beat Georgia. I mean, like, there's no reason that Georgia was not the better team in that game the entire way through. They just somehow, when you get to those 2-point conversion point in overtime, it's just kind of luck. You're just lucking into having to have one that gets on someone, and it's just a crapshoot once you get to those 2-point conversion tries at the end of those. So they essentially should have beat Georgia. They would have been 8-5. They lost their bowl game to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's a very good team, last year, so it's not that terrible. But they have a lot returning. They've got 7 on offense returning, 7 on defense. Haynes King, like I said, and then Jamal Haynes, running back, close to 1,000 yards last year, 9 TDs. There's a lot to like about Georgia Tech. Their defense is really stout. Kyle Efford is back, the guy with the cowboy collar, old school linebacker. Gotta love that. That aesthetic. Their defense, not great last year, but it turned the corner where they were giving up less than 400 yards, which was the first time in 6 years that they had it less than 400 yards given up per game. And they were only allowing 25.6 points per game, which is pretty good considering their track record the last several years. The offense, one of the best they've had in the last several years. They averaged more points the year before, but they're the exact same amount of yardage. I think in this game, we haven't even talked about it. I mean, I haven't even said anything about it yet, but Colorado comes in with, Deion Sanders now does not have his son, or both Sanders' sons, Shiloh and Shador, both onto the NFL, and then without Travis Hunter as well. So, what does this team do? Colorado, they've got guys, they've been, on the recruiting trail, getting some big names that are at some of the spots. They got that big time offensive tackle, quarterback. They have, I'm trying to think of his name offhand. Give me 1 second. They have Julian Lewis, who was a big time recruit. I think he was originally committed to USC, and then he changed his mind, decommitted, and went to Colorado. I mean, they were 9-4 last year, but I really feel like that 9-4 was kind of fool's gold, smoke and mirrors, because they didn't play any of the real top tier teams. And the ones they did, Kansas State, Kansas, and BYU, they got beat, and Kansas, they got beat pretty bad. And then the BYU game, that was a joke of a game. They were never in that game. And, I think they got lucky with their schedule last year. This year, their schedule does not bode well, because they got Arizona State, Kansas State, a better Utah team, Iowa State, BYU. So they essentially now have all the tough teams, where last year they had none of them. Now they have all 4 or 5 of the top tier Big 12 teams. So I think it's going to be a huge step back. I think they're going to struggle. They're going to get, a bunch of wins early because they play some tomato cans early. And then they play Houston, which Houston's kind of struggled recently. So this is their one chance to really stand out. It's a Friday game. It's the nationally televised game. The media is going to be all over Prime. They love him, and it is what it is. I actually am more intrigued about this than probably the rest of his run so far, because now he doesn't have his sons, like he's without Travis Hunter, and I like this is actually like we can see like, all right, is he going to be a good football coach? Can he make them into an 8-9 win team this year? And if he can, he has a real potential with the schedule to actually like prove he's worth it. And like, I don't know. It's just I'm not trying to like, bash him, because like it's all everyone ever does. He's very polarizing. Either you really like him or you really hate him. And I don't think I'm either. I think the brashness I'm not a fan of per se, but I know he's done well with what he had, because Colorado was literally nothing when he got there. They were 1-11 the year before. But I'd like to see it this year. I think this is his prove it year more than any other point. And I think if he does it this year, if he, like I said, 8-9 wins, then you could see him get offers for other schools. And I think that's honestly for him is probably the goal. I don't think 8-9 wins gets you an NFL job, but I think 8-9 wins gets you like,
Arkansas,
Ole Miss, Kentucky. I think he would take Arkansas. I think that's got a better culture and a better fit for him than Kentucky, because Kentucky really has never been anything in football, but Arkansas, has a national title. So I think he would take an SEC job. I think the moment is right for him, because if he does that, but again, I don't think that's the case. I think he's going to struggle against all these tougher teams. They're just going to be better. They are better than what Colorado has right now. I don't think, I think offensively they're going to be able to score points, but I think defensively again, well, they did better defensively, but again, it was against worse opponents. I think if they can continue that trend against better teams, but I don't think they will. When they played better teams last year, they gave up a lot of points and yardage. So I think that's going to continue with playing better teams. And in this game specifically, I like Georgia Tech. I've been a huge fan. I'm going to say Tech wins like, let's say it's like a 25 to like 17 game. What do you got?
Yeah, I think with this one, the biggest thing will be how the pass defense of Tech does, because we know Colorado's going to throw the ball. The running back room isn't great, and even then, it would be kind of a fool's errand, because the defense of Georgia Tech was one of the best in the ACC against the run. But the passing attack wasn't as effective. It was definitely, I think it was averaging over 220 yards a game, which isn't awful, but Colorado's going to be looking to pass it and air it out. That's who they are and what they do, and if they need to scramble out of the pocket and get the first down that way. So how the Georgia Tech does against the pass will be very telling. But I feel like, again, with Colorado re-rolling with transfers and all that, and a lot of teams do this with nowadays, which is fine. It's just you're not going to have the synergy that Georgia Tech does, and Georgia Tech has found ways to win these very high-profile big games.
Yeah,
they did against Florida State in the opening game last year. They did against Miami. There was rarely a time where Tech looked like they were just like dead in the water. So I think with that one, if Tech's defense is able to get Colorado off the field and just play keep away like they usually do, I think they can get it done. I'm going to go very similar. I think if they keep it low scoring, they'll win it, but I'm going to go with a 27 to like 20 win for the Yellow Jackets.
Nice. Okay, moving on. Syracuse, Tennessee, the first game on Saturday. Well, it's the same time as the Texas-Ohio State game, but it came first on the schedule list. So Syracuse, Tennessee, I'm trying to think. It's in Knoxville, right?
I think it's neutral site. I think it's in the Georgia Dome.
Georgia Dome. That is such a weird spot for these two teams to play. You would think it'd be like Charlotte or like
somewhere in the middle. Or they could do it like they did in the 90s, like Tennessee and Syracuse. Like they had that Tennessee in 98 when they won the national championship. Their first game was against Donovan McNabb in Syracuse. And they won that one on a field goal.
But that was in the
That was in Syracuse.
Yeah, Syracuse. Yeah, you're right. It's in Atlanta. That's weird. I don't get, even if like, okay, because I know Tennessee's a Southern team, but like you could probably have done it in like Nashville or like Indianapolis or something. Like, why Atlanta? That makes no sense. I think you know what it is. It's probably that Chick-fil-A kickoff game.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. That's why and Chick-fil-A's in Atlanta, so that's why they did it. And that makes sense. Okay, let's get into the game. No Nico. Nico is gone, so now they have Aguilar. He came in from he was at UCLA, so they basically did a trade, and I think they're getting like the same NIL, which I heard as well, which is kind of funny considering that Nico was wanting more money allegedly. But either way, they get what they want. They're both starters at schools. I think Nico wanted to be back in California anyways, which he is, so good for him. And so Aguilar gets the start here. He had decent years at App State, close to 7,000 total yards or passing yards between the 2 years that he was there. Heupel, Josh Heupel is a really good offense. The last several years, in 22, they averaged 46.1 points per game, which was good for, I think, first in the nation that year. And then last 2 years, they kind of struggled. Joe Milton in 23, he's obviously kind of who knows what to make of Joe Milton. And then last year with Nico, they were a little bit better, 35.7 points per game. I think defensively, they looked great last year. Last 2 years, they've looked really great. They only allowed 16.1 points per game last year, which is really good. But they're only returning they're returning 8 starters. So they've got most of the defense back. Offensively, they're only returning 5 starters. So it's going to be a struggle there. Looks like most of, if not all of, 3 of the 5 offensive linemen are new starters. So there'll be some issues there. Ground game, they're losing Dylan Sampson, but they have Deshaun Bishop, who's coming back, who put up some yards last year. And they also have Peyton Lewis, who put up some yards too. They looked good last year. They only lost to Arkansas in a very fluky game, which I called. And and then they lost to Georgia pretty convincingly. So, Tennessee, this is going to be a struggle because this Syracuse team is really good. Fran Brown has done a really good job of putting this team together. This is not going to be a layup. This is not a tomato can. This is someone that went, I believe, 9-4 or 10-3, and they were 9-3 in the regular season. And the Syracuse team, they don't have McCord because he has gone on to the NFL, but they still have a lot of nice pieces. They lost a few receivers, I think I saw. So they were 10-3. Bad loss to Boston College, which is pathetic considering how bad Boston College was last year. Lost to Pitt. I think that was that weird game where McCord threw wasn't there a game in like a Pittsburgh game where like there was a bunch of interceptions? Was that game?
It might have been.
There was like a weird game like that where Pitt was involved with there's just like a million interceptions. I think that was that one. And then they lost to Stanford. I honestly, considering they beat some good teams, UNLV, Miami, and Georgia Tech. It's like I don't know how they ended up with the record they did.
Yeah.
They probably should have been better. They probably should have been an 11-2 team at worst. And they may have made the playoff. But this Fran Brown is a good coach. He's really turned it around. And offensively, they looked really stout last year, 34.1 points per game, 468 yards per game. So they were really good on offense. McCord was a big reason for that. He had a really big arm, and he had nearly 5,000 yards through the air. So it's a lot leaving. Their replacement for him is Steve Angeli. He was at Notre Dame previously in limited action. I don't know how good this guy's going to be. I don't know for sure if they have the same offensive coordinator, but let me see. Yeah, it's the same offensive coordinator, Jeff Nixon. So, I don't know with this, because it's like it depends on how the quarterback play for Syracuse goes. If they struggle there, because I think Tennessee with Aguilar, there's at least something there. Like he's at least done something, so there is proof of concept. But with Angeli, there's not really proof of concept, so he's kind of flying blind if he's got the ability or not. Syracuse defense was not great last year. And, if Tennessee just scores, I don't know, 24 points, 28 points, they probably win this game. I'm going to go with Tennessee just because I feel like Aguilar has like a track record, and I'm going to say 28 to 22. What do you got?
Yeah, not only with the quarterbacks, but also Tennessee's defense was very under the radar with how good they were. They did a really good job smothering like Alabama and teams like that. And with Syracuse, their defense was on the other end. Like obviously with that schedule, you saw how many points they were giving up, and it was near the bottom in the ACC.
Yeah.
And with that, yeah, Angeli, he hasn't had – I know I think he has like 3 total touchdown passes, which is pretty good. But he hasn't started a game, hasn't seen a lot of action. While Aguilar went through the whole pretty much 2 whole seasons, he threw for over 3,000 yards last year. I just feel like Tennessee's got more in the tank, and Aguilar will be more okay against that kind of defense than Angeli will. Both have very good offenses, but I feel like Tennessee can do more with theirs than Syracuse can right now. So I'm going to go take the Volunteers in this one. I'm going to go with a 35-20 win.
You think that many points?
Yeah.
It's probably right. I was kind of thinking that in my head as I was going over it. It could be, honestly, because it's like Syracuse defense is not good. And like it feels like Tennessee, if they can get any kind of, momentum, their defense is good enough. They can hold them. So like, I think they'll be fine. Okay. The big one, I don't know if it is officially a 1v2. I think I saw somewhere where it's a 1v3, which
it's 1v3 to the AP poll.
And I'm like, of course. Why can't they just make it 1v2?
Yeah.
But whatever. It doesn't matter. It's because like, who knows what they'll end up at the end of the year, but it's still a big time matchup. We don't get these very often, like specifically, that high in the regular season. So it's nice to see it when you do. This Texas team, I'm not sold on Arch Manning. I'm really not. Until he does it in a big time game, I really won't know what to make of him. So I'm holding out judgment on him. I feel like he's capable. He's got talent. He can run the ball, and he's somewhat of a decent passer, but we haven't seen it against really, game opponents. Quinn Ewers was in most of those games last year, especially against Georgia and the playoff games. So it's like, he really, Arch Manning didn't really get to do much outside of like some run plays and some little action against these bigger opponents. So we will see in this game. Last year Texas went 13-3. They lost to this very Ohio State team in a close one. The Texas had the ball inside a goal to go situation with very little time left to tie it, and they fumbled it, and Ohio State with Jack Sawyer returns it for a touchdown. So they got the win there, and they went on to win the national championship. Both of these teams are very talented. They're probably, 1 and 1A or 1A and 1B as far as the most talented teams in the country. They've been recruiting outstanding for several years now. Texas, really has ascended the last 2 years, and they are projected to be, the champion this year. There's a lot of hype behind Texas. I think with Ohio State, there's some trepidation because they lost Jim Knowles as defensive coordinator, who was outstanding there. Last 2 years with him, 11.2 and 12.9 points allowed per game. That is absurdly good. Their offense in 23 was 30.5 points per game last year. Much better, 35.7. So if they can be up to that level, that like 35 and higher range, they're going to do well this year. But, Ohio State, I think this game for them, they're only returning 3 starters on defense. I think that's going to be the struggle. I think that's it right there. If you look at the weakness here in this game, yes, Ohio State has all the talent on offense. Jeremiah Smith coming back, and Carnell Tate as well. But I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like defensively, Ohio State's going to struggle in this game. I don't even know who their DC is. Brian Hartline's taking over the play calling. Matt Patricia.
I was going to say,
yeah.
I was like,
and that's
asking who Ohio State's because it's Matt Patricia.
And he struggled his last several jobs in the NFL. So I don't know why he even got the nod here. I'm surprised that Ohio State didn't go after a bigger fish. But this is what it is. I think it's going to be a struggle. I think Texas is going to be able to score points. I don't think it's going to be like a ton of points, but I think it's going to be enough. I'm going to say Texas scores 30 and Ohio State scores 20. What do you got?
So with this one, obviously both teams have a lot to prove, and especially in the quarterback position. You have, Julian Sayin coming in for Ohio State. He was, highly touted recruit. He gets his first start, and Arch Manning obviously has been the biggest prospect in a long time. And like his first start, like I said earlier, in the horseshoe, that's a lot to handle. So I feel like, though, play calling wise is going to be very indicative of how this is going to go. The goal for Texas would be to make it as get as many high percentage pass plays as possible, which is going to help the Ohio State defense. You're not going to have to worry too much about being burned deep, but if you can force them to jar the ball loose on those incomplete passes and stuff like that, try to get them to throw it to the outside, get tight coverage on them. With Ohio State, though, you've got the best wide receiver in the country right now in Jeremiah Smith, and Carnell Tate on the other side too. So Sayin is going to have options, and they can throw the ball deep. They weren't afraid to do that last year, and they're not going to be afraid this year. I feel like it's a really tough call. It is a really tough call on who to, because they're very even, and we're honestly not going to know until the ball is kicked off. But if I had to take a pick, I would probably say I feel more comfortable, even though they lost a lot. I'm going to take Ohio State finding a way to win this one. I feel like Sane will be more comfortable throwing it to guys like Smith and Tate and those passes and can burn them deep more than Texas could. So I feel like Ohio State can make more big plays than Texas can right now. And it's not saying Texas isn't afraid to like take chances, but I feel like Ohio State can convert more on those. So I'm going to take Buckeyes winning a really close one. I'm going to go with like a 30 to like 28, 27 win. I think it'll be close.
Nice. Okay. I'll let you do this one. Go ahead with this one.
Bama and FSU. All right. So, both of these teams, man, you're looking. Definition of rebound is a very like loose term because for Bama and their fans, 9-4 is unacceptable. They lost games to Oklahoma, Vandy, but they beat teams against Georgia. In all matter, they had a good season for any other team, but a poor one for Bama standards. Especially because it just ended on such a sour note, losing to Michigan in a very winnable game when Milroe was in, Ryan Williams was still there. They still had enough guys to win that game. So now it's up to Kalen DeBoer, and now with Simpson at quarterback, who was a huge prospect going in, it's up to them to show that Alabama is still dangerous, is still, the class of the SEC. And for Florida State, I mean, dude, if you want to say, hey, no, 2-10 is not the trend, it was a fluke, what better way to do it than against Bama? But Florida State lost a lot of players, and they got Castellanos coming in at quarterback. Castellanos, while he did beat Florida State last year at Boston College, he wasn't much of a the passing quarterback. He was definitely in that kind of triple option, read option type play, which Alabama could snuff that out very good. The defense is very impressive for Bama still. The secondary is elite. So it's going to be even tougher for Florida State to really start moving the ball. And I feel like Alabama, they'll just have more on the offensive side than Florida State has right now.
Yeah.
I think Florida State isn't going to like just lie down and die, but I really will find it a hard time for Florida State to stay in this game. I'm going to go Bama winning, and I'll go with like a 35-14 victory. Bama is just going to play keep away and make sure that Florida State doesn't get any explosive plays.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have faith in this Florida State team. I don't know what to make of them for the rest of their schedule, but I definitely don't have faith in them in this game specifically. Alabama is just a way better team, way better coach. Alabama's bringing in their OC that was originally going to come last year, but he comes in this year. So it's Ryan Grubb. So I would expect similar offense to what they had 2 years ago at Washington with Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix Jr. What we'll see here with Alabama this year. Last year they were still a good offense, not great. I expect them to take another step this year. I think Ty Simpson will probably do pretty well. I think he's going to put up some decent numbers. The only real caveat for this game is that Jam Miller is out for this game. So, and there's not really a proven back outside of that for Alabama, but I don't think that necessarily matters. I think they've got quality guys to really plug and play there, and their offensive line is strong. So, they'll be able to move the ball pretty consistently. They returned 3 of their 5 starters on the offensive line, so they should be good there. Florida State, it is what it is. The guy did not eat the dog poop in the Red Solo Cup, and it's going to continue into this year. So until you eat the dog poop, you're going to keep eating poop on the field. So I feel like Bama's going to win probably like 38 to like 14. Okay, next game we have is UTSA Texas A&M. Not a great game, but I expect Texas A&M should win this game handily. Unless, Ian, do you feel like this could be an upset? What are you thinking?
I don't think it'll be an upset because Texas A&M's defense has been really strong. Especially, but UTSA's offense is no joke. We've seen it in the American. They, can run up and down the field, and in a breeze. So for Texas A&M, they're just going to have to keep everybody in front of them, and set the edge on the run plays on the outside. UTSA loves playing to the outside. So if the corners can, able to lock it down there, both on the run and the pass, Texas A&M won't have a problem, but easier said than done with this UTSA attack. I mean, again, we've seen it firsthand, how well it can be. I'll say in this game, though, A&M, they had a really good beginning, like middle of the year, but they had the November from hell. They won one game in November, and it was against New Mexico State. They got blown out by South Carolina. They took a bad loss to Auburn, and they put Texas on upset watch, but they just couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And then they lost to USC in the bowl game. But I think I'm going to say A&M's got this. UTSA will put up points, but I just think A&M will control it. I'm going to go with like a 38 to let's go 40-20. How about that?
What'd you say? I didn't hear that. What was the score?
40-20 win for the Aggies.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines. I mean, I think UTSA will score some points, but it's like, A&M's defense is really good. I mean, that's definitely the strong suit. Elko was a defensive coach, so obviously they're going to have a strong defense. Marcel Reed is back, and he did adequately last year, and I feel like he'll do well this year as well. I'm going to say probably a 37 to 16 game. Okay, moving on to one of the teams we cover, Florida, LIU. We're not going to be on it too much, but what do you want out of this game?
I want to see, obviously touchdowns. That's the most common thing. But I want to see how well Lagway is throwing in the pocket. Towards the end of the year, wherever that injury was, it was starting to nag him. And after the Ole Miss game, it was starting to kind of be evident that his passes weren't there. Now, he was still able to make plays, no doubt. He's just that type of player. But I want to see more clean passes that we all know he can make. And there's no better opponent than, a layup game in the first game. So how he does in the pocket is how I want to, stepping into it. Because they played not that great against Tulane. And they could have easily put up 50 on Florida State. They were just handing the ball to them. So that's what I want to see from Florida. And, obviously 100 points would be fantastic. But
not realistic.
But I would say how Lagway does in the pocket. And I want to see, how the rushing attack is too, now that Montrell Johnson's gone. I want to see Jaden Baugh, how he does as the number one back. And I would like to see, if he's healthy, I want to see, Dallas Wilson. That would be really cool. The Lagway recruited him just as hard as Napier. But I think Florida will win this one handedly. I'm going to go with a 45-10 win. I think maybe the backups slip up at one point.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines. I'm thinking it's going to be a 54, probably 54 to 7 game or something like that. And I think the defense does well because the LIU is not good, and this should be a thrashing for the most part. But the one thing that I want to see is, yes, DJ Lagway and the rest of the guys and everything, but as they get into the younger guys, I want to see some of the running backs there, some of the defensive players getting some burn, and then some of the offensive line as well. Some of those backups, getting some playing time, so we know how those guys will do in case of injury. Just hopefully not, but just you need some playing time there. And then also the one thing I mostly want to see is if they get to Trammell Jones, the touted quarterback that's on the roster. He seems to be poised to take over the backup role at some point, if not by the end of the season, probably coming into next year. So I want to see him get some playing time and him get some confidence and just see how he does. Okay, moving on to another team we cover, USC, Missouri State, USC. Out of this one, I'm just hoping that the defense does really well. I think they will. I think they'll probably hold them to like 10 points. And then I'm going to guess like USC scores like 55. So I'm going 55-10. I want to see Jaden Mayava do well. I want to see some of the other receivers step up. I know Lemon and Ja'Kai Lane will both do well. But let's see some of the other receivers do well here. And then some of these new running backs, let's see how they do. Let's see. Hopefully they get some burn. Anything from you in this game?
So Missouri State, the opponent they're playing, this is their first game as an FBS opponent, and that sucks. Your first game as a Division I team is against USC in LA. That's tough. The only thing I will note, I did some homework on it. Missouri State was like top 25 in passing offense in FCS, so that might be worth something in this game. But I think USC, especially with Maliava, they should be able to control the Bears here. I'm going to go with let's do like a 38-6 win. Biggest thing I want to see from USC is the defense, obviously. It'll be easier against an opponent like this, but obviously with how bad it was last year, you need to take steps forward if you're going to fulfill the potential that has been promised since Lincoln Riley's been here.
Well, I mean, it's just because last year it was better, the defense. I think years before that, the 23 and 22 was where it really let them down. But I think Danton Lynn still there, a great DC. I think he's going to lead them to better things. Okay, let's move on to LSU Clemson. This honestly is probably the biggest game of this weekend because both of these teams, outside of Ohio State, Texas, obviously, but like this is like the sneaky big game. Like for whatever reason, it's not getting as much attention because of Texas, Ohio State, and like Miami, Notre Dame, and that rivalry. But like this game is gonna be a big game, and like I think both of these offenses can score a ton of points. Cade Klubnik is back for Clemson. I think he's going to throw for a lot of yards, I think, this year, and I think he'll do it in this game. I don't love LSU's defense. They have struggled the last several years. They were, better last year, but I guess it has been terrible. But I feel like their defense has been their weak point throughout the years, and this could be their problem here too. I think Nussmeier is a top tier quarterback. More than likely will be in New York for the Heisman. He came back for his last year and looking to prove himself. Threw for over 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, but he did have 12 interceptions. Their losses last year, a close one to USC, got blown out by Texas A&M, got blown out by Alabama, and then beat by Florida, which pretty much nullified their CFP chances. This Clemson team got into the playoff, lost to Texas. I think Clemson's on a mission. They have a lot returning. They have 8 starters returning on offense, 9 on defense. That's close to the almost entire team returning. Basically every offensive lineman except for one returning. I like Clemson a lot. It's in Death Valley. Yes, LSU. Clemson is called Death Valley. I know you hate that, but that's just what it is. I think Clemson, it's like historically, right? Clemson has more of a tie to naming it Death Valley than LSU does, but I'm not exactly sure. But it
comes from the poem, and technically it is referring to the Louisiana Death Valley, from what I remember. But there's been it's up to interpret. It's up to interpretation.
No, so what happened was someone from Clemson went to the real Death Valley out here in California, and it was like hot and terrible and like, a very inhospitable environment. And he came back, and I think that's what that rock has to do with as well, has something to do with it, and that's why it's called Death Valley. But I'm not exactly sure. I don't follow Clemson a ton of their lore, and I don't know LSU's lore with Death Valley as well. But regardless, let's move on. So it's in Clemson. I feel like Clemson right now is a better team. Like, I like LSU a lot, and I think they'll do damage the rest of the year. But I don't like them in this game. I think Clemson wins this one. I think it's going to be close, probably like a 28-27 game, and maybe Clemson has the ball last and wears out the clock. Maybe they're up for most of the game, and then LSU gets a score late to make it a 1-point game, and then Clemson has the ball last and wears out the clock, and then that's it. So, like I said, 28-27. What do you got, Ian?
So you want to talk about similarities too? Both play in Death Valley, both are called Tigers, and both have purple as a primary color. So, I mean, there's reason for them not to like each other because they're looking at a mirror if you think about it. Regardless of that, with this one, I feel like it's one of those things where the experience of both teams really comes in. And with Brian Kelly and his track record, and Nussmeier for that matter, big games haven't been their forte. Now, They did. I remember Brian Kelly's first year. They did beat Alabama. But last year, they lost to USC. They got blown out by Bama. And then let's be honest, as a Gator fan, I totally expected LSU to win that game because they should have. And they didn't. So with Clemson, they were able to, rise up from last year, and they actually gave Texas a way harder fight than I think anybody was expecting. Yeah. And I think Gabe Klubnik is the best quarterback in the country. So with that, I feel like Clemson pulls it out. It'll be extremely close, as these teams always are. The last time, they played in the national championship. But I think track record, they've always been within a field goal of each other. Also to note, I believe this is the first time they're playing each other not in a dome or a bowl game. Because all the other times they have met have been in either the Sugar Bowl or the Peach Bowl. So that's useless knowledge. Take that for what you will. But I'm going to take Clemson winning. I'm going to go with a 35 to 30 win for Clemson.
Okay. Next game we have another team we cover, UCLA and Utah. Last game on Saturday we're going to talk about. This is a tough game. This is not an easy game to start for this UCLA team that's really trying to revamp everything what they did last year. New offensive coordinator with Tino Sunseri, new quarterback with Nico Hamilava, and I don't know, because Utah is doing the same. They've got a new OC and a new quarterback as well, so they've got a similar situation. Utah's defense is probably a little bit better. I think the edge is there. I mean, I like UCLA's defense too. They've got familiarity for the first time in a long time with the same DC coming back. Utah, it's in LA. It's in the Rose Bowl. I like UCLA in this one. I'm going with this because I feel like Sunseri, who has taken kind of, okay quarterbacks and turned them into stellar performances. Every quarterback he's had the last several years, look what he did with Rourke last year at Indiana. That guy was potentially a Heisman candidate. He was 10th in the voting. If he had been healthy all year, he probably would have went to New York at least minimum. And, they were the second best offense in the country, 40-something points per game. I feel like they're going to do the same thing here. I think they've got the ingredients. I know the offensive line is somewhat new with transfers and the wide receivers as well. But there's talent there. Quasi Gilmer is really talented. I feel like they're going to be able to run the ball. They've got some solid running backs with Jalen Berger and Javion Jet Thomas. I feel like UCLA is going to win this game. I'm going to say it's probably going to be a dogfight. I'm going to say like a 24-17 game, and maybe like UCLA scores late to win it to put them over, and then they get a stop on Utah in the ensuing drive, and that's how it ends. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I'm almost the same. I think it'll be like kind of a dogfight type game. I think defenses are going to reign here because both offenses were not particularly good last year, but the defenses built them out. But I feel like UCLA just had the better defense overall last year. And I feel like they'll be able to get enough stops. And with Amaliava, he is the more polished quarterback of the two. And I feel more comfortable about him. The other thing is, too, if this was in Salt Lake City, I am taking Utah all the way.
Yeah, same. But I agree.
It's in L.A. Yeah, it's in the Rose Bowl. And I feel like that benefits UCLA way more now. So I'm going to take UCLA. They'll win this one, and it's going to be a close one. But I'll go with like a let's do like 23 to like 16, 17. Let's do something like that.
Okay, and then the next game we got on Sunday is Virginia Tech versus South Carolina. This could really be the jumping point for Lenora Sellers and the South Carolina program. I don't know if they're going to have the best record coming into this year or finishing up this year, but I feel like Lenora Sellers has a huge chance to be a potential Heisman in the similar vein of like maybe Tim Tebow's year when he won the Heisman. Like they didn't win a ton of games, but they still were like right there and like played against the big teams and had big time matchups, and he performed well. And that's what really put Tim over the top. And I think that's what Lenoris is going to do. If he stays healthy and he plays in these big time games, this one being the first one, there's no other game on during that time. So he'll have the focus to himself. So people are going to watch and they're going to see what he's all about. And I feel like he's going to put up a huge point total. South Carolina lost some guys on defense, so it's going to be a struggle defensively. I don't love this Va Tech team. They've kind of been all over the road the last couple of years as far as record-wise. But I feel like South Carolina is a better team here. I think South Carolina wins. I'm going to say probably like a 31 to 20 game. What do you got?
I think this one now, South Carolina, especially on offense, is going to have to come out firing against Va Tech. And offensively, Va Tech has left a lot to be desired. They were really good in the run, but not so much in the passing game, and that's kind of South Carolina's forte. And defensively, very middle of the pack. The one thing to note about Va Tech last year, all of their losses, with the exception of Clemson, and even that one was only a 10-point loss, all of them were by one score. I feel like South Carolina, they'll jump out early, but Va Tech they can't keep them away. And I think it'll come down to a last second, not a Miami type Hail Mary, but a last second chance. But South Carolina's defense is going to be able to get the stop. I'm going to go with the Gamecocks winning this one, and a closer one than I think people think, but I'm going to go with let's go to 31-24 South Carolina.
Okay, last two. Sunday night in the Orange Bowl, I was just about to say. Sunday night in the Hard Rock Stadium. In
Catholics versus convicts.
In whatever city it is. I think it's Miami Gardens or whatever. There's nothing around this stadium. it really is pathetic. I love how they build these stadiums and there's never anything around them. It's like such a stupid move for these cities to allow that stuff to happen. But Notre Dame, Miami, like you said, Catholics versus convicts, and it's a long-standing rivalry that's gone on for like 50 years, and I think in this game, is Beck healthy? Is Carson Beck back to form? Can he eliminate the mistakes that he's had in some of these games? He had like 3 interceptions against Florida, so he needs to clean that up. He did not look good against Texas, and they still somehow won that game. But in the SEC championship game, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of them because they are missing. They're not returning 6 of their like top 7 pass catchers from last year. So there's a lot of production gone from this offense, which was the number 1 offense in the country. Cam Ward's gone. All of those wide receivers, Arroyo, the tight end, Martinez, the running back. Can they replace all that talent? Mark Fletcher seems to be a solid running back for them. Defensively, Ruben Bain looks to get back to form his freshman year. And then there's some other standouts there. And then like in the secondary, they brought in a ton of transfers, and they're bringing in a new defensive coordinator from Minnesota. And, I did see something where that coordinator, he was there at Minnesota one year. So it might have been the scheme from the guy previously, and that's why they had as much success as they did. But who knows? I mean, he still was able to keep that up. I don't know. This team, I like Notre Dame a lot, and I'll talk about them now. So it's like Notre Dame has a ton of talent on defense. A lot of guys back from last year's a national championship runner-up team. Offensively, they bring back 7 guys, 7 on defense as well. And Jeremiah Love, specifically, Jaden Greathouse is back, who had a really great year in a really big game against Penn State. As far as quarterback, Riley Leonard is gone, but they bring in CJ Carr, who is a highly touted freshman or redshirt freshman. Notre Dame's schedule outside of this is relatively easy outside of a USC and Texas A&M game. They don't necessarily need this win as much as Miami probably does. Mario Cristobal has really faltered over the last several years in these big games. I like Notre Dame a lot in this one. I think their defense travels. I think Miami thinks that they're going to have an advantage as far as crowd and environment. I don't think that matters. Notre Dame has played in tough environments the last several years, and I think they're up to snuff. I think they get the win here. I think it's going to be close. I think, Notre Dame's able to run the ball, and I think in a close game, it's going to be like a 24-20 game, and I think Notre Dame's defense is going to be able to stop Miami, who has the ball last, and Notre Dame gets like an interception or something to end the game. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, you mentioned there's a lot more consistency coming back with Notre Dame, and I think that's going to be key here. There's a lot of new faces, obviously, for Miami, and they're going to be put to the test with this Notre Dame because Notre Dame's defense was elite last year. Not only that, to make it harder for Carson Beck in his first game at Miami, they had the 4th best defense in the country last year against the pass. So that was Miami's bread and butter last year, and now that's gone. Especially knowing that Carson Beck is more of a thrower and he's not as mobile in the pocket as Cam Ward was. So you're going to have to throw for the first down, and Notre Dame's going to welcome that. Offensively, Notre Dame, with Jeremiah Love running the ball, Miami's defense was very good against the run. But I feel like with that, Notre Dame can get enough points on the board to keep a distance away from the Hurricanes. For Miami, though, for me, this was their biggest. Like, I know it's game one, but they did. I remember Joe Klatt did a make or break preview of like what the biggest games were of each team season. And if I had to do one for Miami, it's this one, because now you have all these guys coming back. You have to prove you can win these big games. They're at home against a rival in Notre Dame, who just was in the national championship. That you need to prove that you are still on that level and you're not going backwards. So big game, but I feel like Notre Dame gets it done. I'm going to go with the Irish. I'm going to go with a 28-23 win.
Okay, last game, Monday night. We got North Carolina and TCU. Ian, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so obviously the hoopla with North Carolina is Bill Belichick as head coach. Because having a pro coach who has never coached college football is a fantastic idea. Anyways, North Carolina, obviously, the wheels just fell off with Mac Brown last year, and it needed to have a change. They were just really bad in all facets. They had a good run game, but other than that, defensively, they were terrible. They gave up like 70 points to I forget who it was, but it was a team you shouldn't be giving so many points up to. TCU comes
James
in.
Madison.
Exactly. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
TCU, on the other hand, they've reloaded. They are still in that championship hangover, but they are dark horses for the Big 12 as well. They had a very good passing. I think they were top 10 in passing offense last year. And they had a good passing defense as well. TCU with this one, I'm going to take the Horned Frogs. The North Carolina's defense just isn't enough to handle the type of passing attack TCU will have. And I don't feel like the offense is going to be too much trouble. If the running attack for North Carolina is able to put it in third and manageable situations, they can keep it close. But I feel like TCU will find a way to win. I'm going to go Horned Frogs winning with a 30-19 win.
Yeah, I was amazed to see Josh Hoover's totals from last year.
Yeah.
He had nearly 4,000 yards passing, which is astounding. Considering you heard very little, and they went 9-4 as well. So you didn't hear anything about TCU almost the entire year. I think when they lost to UCF and SMU, I think everyone pretty much wrote them off, and you didn't hear from them really the rest of the year. But they ended up solidly beating some. I think they were kind of blessed with a fortunate schedule last year. They didn't play any of the tougher Big 12 teams, but this year it changes. It changed with Colorado. TCU this year gets Iowa State, BYU, Baylor, and Kansas State. So they get and Arizona State. So they get almost all those tough teams this year. So we'll see if they're a real team or not. Hoover is back, like I said. I like it too. I don't think Belichick is up to task. I think this is – I don't know why he even took this job. He's super old. Why even bother with, getting into the college game now when NILs is as crazy as it is? It seems like kind of the weirdest thing to see happen. It's kind of bizarre. I don't think this is going to work. I think they're going to get blown out. Most of these games, they play tough opponents. And I think that's the case here. I think they lose 41 to 20. Okay. That's it. That is the show, y'all. So Ian has his article about the Boise State USF game that is out there as of taping, this is Friday before week 0. We'll have that out shortly. So it'll be out by the time this airs. So you'll see that on haterradio.com for that article. I'll probably do an article about the LSU Florida game 2 weeks later. And maybe we'll do one about the USF Florida game as well. Oh yeah, surprise. I got a ticket, a flight home. So I'm going to go to the USF Florida game. So I'll see you, Ian, there. And then I'll do some filming and get some content we'll have after that game. And then so look forward to that. Find us on all the social media accounts. Hater Radio, just type it in, comes right up. On YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment, share, help us out with the algorithm there. It goes a long way for getting us in the mix there. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate all your support. Ian has that new handle. We're going to change the one that's down there now. It's not right. We got a new one for him. Ian is officially G5_Gibson. So we've got G5 Gibson going forward. So Ian, thank you for everything. And, take care, everybody. We'll talk to you on next Sunday, which will be the recap. Or no, actually, we have to discuss this now. I know this is going on the air, but Ian, what do you want to do as far as that show? Because there are still games out there. You just want to do a Sunday show, and then we'll discuss the Monday, Sunday games on the Wednesday show.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, that's what I'm just going to do because I don't want to interrupt the flow of changing up the days. I'm just going to do that. Just makes it easier. So we'll be back on Sunday. Again, our show is Sunday and Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on all the formats. And we'll talk to you then there. See you guys.